Hey everyone, Liam here, and thanks for tuning in. You know, as a sound designer, my world revolves around what I hear. My apartment, Tua, in this old Brooklyn building called the Alistair. It's not just my home, it's my studio. I need quiet. I pay a premium for it, and honestly, it's everything. But lately, things have been anything but quiet, and it all started with apartment 3A right above me. The first thing I noticed wasn't a scream. Surprisingly, it was the silence after the screaming stopped. The Millers, my previous upstairs neighbors, with their 3 a.m. arguments and thunderous slamming doors, they were finally gone. They moved out in a hurry, leaving behind a shredded armchair on the curb and this heavy, suffocating quiet. And, trust me, that silence, it was far worse than any noise they ever made. Each felled tick, like the air before a storm, with a palpable weight to it. Sal, our building's super. He's a bit of an old, and as he hauled away their old stuff, he muttered something I tried to ignore. That apartment, he wheezed, his breath smelling of old coffee, it chews people up. I shrugged it off. I thought, asterisk typical Sal. Asterisk, for 2 blissful weeks, 3A was empty, and I had peace. But it wasn't the restful kind of peace. It was the unsettling quiet of a room with a ticking bomb. And then I started to smell it, a faint metallic odor, like ozone and old pennies clinging to my curtains, seeping into the air. I kept trying to figure out what it was, but it just lingered. Then, the next batch of tenants arrived, 3 college kids. I heard them dragging furniture across the floor, the muffled boom of hip-hop echoing through my ceiling, bursts of laughter. I braced myself for the worst, preparing my noise-canceling headphones for battle. At first, it was just youth. Manageable, I could work around it. But after about a week, the vibe changed. The laughter stopped. The music faded. Instead, I started hearing voices, sharp debates at first, probably about rent or who finished the milk. Annoying, but normal. Then, they started getting lower, more venomous. I was in my studio, editing the soothing sound of a babbling brook for a project, when a sudden, jarring thud from the ceiling made my headphones rattle against my ears. And then, a shriek. Not a party who, folks. This was a terrified, choked-off scream that pierced right through me. I ripped my headphones off. My apartment went dead silent. And then I heard it, a dragging sound. Scrape, scrape, a pause. Then, scrape again. It was slow, deliberate, unnerving. My heart was pounding. I knew something was terribly wrong. I called 911. The cops arrived quickly. I heard them banging on 3A's door, their shouted commands echoing in the stairwell. Then, I heard them bringing someone down the stairs. Curiosity, or maybe dread, made me peek through my peephole. One of the students, the blonde one, was being half-carried by 2 officers. He wasn't cuffed, but he was sobbing, his face swollen and red. The other 2 followed, looking pale and completely They didn't even look at me. That night, I heard them packing. By morning, they were gone. Apartment 3A was quiet again. This time, the silence lasted a whole month. And that strange smell, ozone and rust, it got stronger. It seeped into my refrigerator, into my clothes. It was everywhere. And then I noticed something else. On my living room ceiling, directly below 3ASL, the bean room, a small stain appeared. It was the color of weak tea. Sal, the super, said it was old pipes. But I knew the pipes ran along the opposite wall. I didn't say anything. I just watched it. And then Sarah called. Sarah, my best friend from college, the only one who still calls me Lee, and she and her fiancé Mark were looking for a place. She'd heard the Alistair had an opening. Apartment? Press ha! She cheered into the phone. We'll be neighbors. It's perfect. A cold spike of dread went right down my spine. Sarah, wait. I started, trying to sound calm. This building is old. The walls are thin. Oh, don't worry. She laughed, completely oblivious. You know us. We just read books and watched documentaries. We're the most boring couple, you know. I couldn't bring myself to tell her about the Millers, about the students, about the scream. How could I? It sounded insane. It sounded like I didn't want her here. So I faked a smile, helped them carry their sofa up the stairs, and congratulated them. I told myself it would be different this time. The first 2 weeks were a dream. I heard Sarah's cheerful laugh drifting down through the floor, the occasional soft jazz music. They even had me up for dinner. 3A, under their warm lights and fresh sage green paint, looked charming, inviting. They looked so happy. The stain on my ceiling seemed to fade, almost completely gone. The rust smell vanished. I actually convinced myself I had been ridiculous, that it was just a string of bad tenants. But then, the change started. It was a Tuesday night. I was working late, trying to capture the intricate sound of ice cracking for a nature documentary. I heard a single thump. Not loud, just like a heavy book being dropped upstairs. Then silence. Not the heavy, suffocating silence from before. Just quiet. A different kind of quiet. The next day there was no jazz music. Instead, I heard whispering. Voices too low for me to understand, but they had this strange, angry rhythm. Up, then down. Up, then down. Constant. Like a relentless, nagging argument that never quite ended. It was unnerving. I texted Sarah. "Everything okay?" 5 minutes later, she replied, "Fine. Mark's just stressed about work." But the whispering continued for 3 days, non-stop, like a backing track that never faded. I started getting terrible headaches, and the smell was back. This time, it wasn't just ozone. It was thick. The acrid tang of raw meat left out too long. I frantically checked my own trash, but nothing. The smell was coming from the vents. It was coming from the walls. On the 4th night, the whispering suddenly stopped. I let out a breath of relief, thinking they'd finally resolved whatever argument they were having. I was about to head to bed when I heard the footsteps. Mark's footsteps. Pacing. The same route, Oberden, window to door. Door full, window steady, as a metronome. For excruciating hours. The next morning, I looked at my ceiling. The tea stain was back, but it wasn't tea-colored anymore. It was a dark red, like spilled wine. And it looked wet. I texted Sarah. No reply. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I tried to go to work, but I couldn't focus. The sound of ice cracking now sounded like bones breaking in my headphones. I came home early, my mind racing. The building was deathly quiet. I stood in my living room, staring up at the ceiling. The dark red stain seemed to be spreading, like ink on wet paper. And then I heard Sarah. "What did you do?" Her voice was hoarse, distorted, filled with a raw pain I'd never heard from her before. Another voice, Mark's. "It wasn't my fault. You know, it wasn't." "What did you do?" Sarah repeated. Louder this time, her voice cracking. Sarah calmed down. A crash, shattering glass, followed by a wet, heavy thwack. Then a scream. It was Mark. A horrible, primal, agonizing scream, cut short by a sickening crunch. Silence. The longest 10 seconds of my life. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum in my chest. The smell of rot and ozone was so thick, I gagged. And then I heard her. A sob, a tiny, broken, whimpering sound. Oh no, oh no, Mark. Oh, Mark. Adrenaline surged through me. I didn't care about the danger, about what might be waiting up there. That was Sarah. My friend, I ran out of my apartment, taking the stairs 2 at a time. I slammed my fist on 3A's door. "Sarah! Sarah! Open the door! It's Liam!" The crying inside stopped. Instantly. "Sarah!" I yelled again, trying the knob. It was unlocked. I pushed the door open. The room was dark. The smell hit me like a physical wall. Thick, coppery, the horrifying scent of a slaughterhouse. The only light came from the window, pooling faintly on the floor. The apartment was destroyed. The sage-green sofa was overturned. Shards of a ceramic vase were everywhere. Mark was near the window, face down, at an angle that wasn't natural. Still, and Sarah. She was standing in the middle of the room, air back to me. She was trembling. "Sarah," I whispered, stepping inside, my voice barely audible. "My God." "Did he?" "He wouldn't stop," Sarah whispered. But her voice wasn't her voice. It was raspy, layered, like three people speaking at once. It sent shivers down my spine. "Sarah, we have to call the police." Yorid just kept talking. She continued, still not turning to face me, whispering, "About what he wanted to do. About the stains." I froze. "The stains." "It's right here." Sarah slowly turned around. It wasn't Sarah. I mean, it was her face, her hair, but her eyes. Her eyes were completely black. No whites, just two empty, wet, black pits. And she was smiling. A wide, wrong, stretched-to-far smile that seemed to tear at her face. "It's right under us." "Lee," she whispered, that multi-layered voice chilling me to the bone. "It's always been there. It's hungry." I looked down at the floor, where the faint window light hit. It wasn't wood. It was a massive, dark, glistening black stain, shaped almost exactly like the one on my ceiling, and it was pulsing. Gently. As if it were breathing. I stumbled back, hitting the door frame with a sickening thud. "What the hell is that?" "It doesn't like to be woken up," Sarah not Sarah said, her head tilted, observing me. "But you kept knocking. You kept listening. You fed it." "The Millers. The kid. You fed them your anger." I didn't understand. My mind was reeling. "No. I just... thin walls," Leah hissed, its voice suddenly closer, more intimate, as if speaking directly into my mind. "You hate the noise? You hate the interruption? Your anger, it leaks. It seeps upstairs. It needs somewhere to go. And this apartment, it listens." A terrifying realization washed over me. The Millers' fights. They weren't yelling at each other. They were yelling at the floor. The students. They weren't fighting each other. They were trying to get out. And Sarah? "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "Yes," it said, its black eyes burning into me, and now it's full. Sarah not Sarah tilted her head, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. And then I heard it too, from below me, from my own apartment. From Tua? A single thump. And then a whisper, an angry, pressing rhythm, coming from beneath the floorboards where I stood. I looked back at Mark. He wasn't dead. He was twitching, trying to drag himself, his eyes wide with pure terror. He wasn't looking at Sarah. He was staring at me. "Liam," he gurgled, his voice barely a breath. "Your hand, your hand." I looked down. I hadn't even realized. I was holding something. When had I picked it up? A hammer, a claw hammer from my tool bag, right by the door. I didn't even remember grabbing it, and it was wet. The stain on my ceiling. It wasn't a leak. It was a reflection. "It's hungry," Sarah whispered again, her black eyes locked on me, her smile stretching impossibly wider, a ghastly, unhuman grin. The whispering from my apartment below grew louder. It sounded satisfied. It was waiting.